Hello, everyone. Welcome to CoinFund Q&A. Today we have Jez from FunFair.io.
Hey,
How are you doing, Jez? Thank you very much for joining us.
it's
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what FunFair is.
absolutely. I'm Jez San. I'm the founder and CEO of FunFair. My background is a couple of decades in computer games. So I started when I was very young and built up a big computer game developer. After that, I did online poker, and that was combining my two dreams of computer games and poker, my two hobbies, effectively. And we did a really cool 3D kind of almost VR type poker game. And then I was getting into blockchain, and so now I've combined all of my loves into one, which is computer games, online gaming, and blockchain. And so FunFair is a synthesis of that, and it's the first actually economically viable online casino technology. And we use all the cool tricks of Ethereum and smart contracts and some new tricks we invented to make it happen.
So that's really interesting. What do you mean by economically viable? Does that mean that sort of more traditional platforms are losing money?
Oh, well, we see there's three groups of online casinos. There's the incumbent group, which is the huge industry, and that's the online casinos that take credit card deposits, and they're a high risk for the player because the player is leaving money on the casino, and some casinos are more trustworthy than others, and so the players have trust issues. Most casinos are legit and fair, and that the customer will get their money back when they want it back, but some aren't. And so players do have a legitimate reason why they don't always trust the online casinos. The trust issue has limited the growth of online casinos, because if you look at other disrupted industries, almost every land-based industry has had an online version of it that is disruptive. Everything from online shopping, to taxis with Uber and so on. But you should be able to disrupt any incumbent industry with an online version of it. But in online gaming, it hasn't really happened because the land-based casinos have exclusivities and gaming licenses and so on. So the online gaming industry has been relatively small compared to the land-based gaming industry, and that's odd. That's like it doesn't fit with the profile of the internet disrupting everything. Then there's another category of online casinos, which are the Bitcoin ones, and these they have some advantages, which are people can play privately without having to give their credit card information. So that's an advantage for some players. But there's also a massive disadvantage in trust, because you're now playing on casinos where you still have to make a deposit and you still have to leave your money with the casino, except now you don't know who they are, and they could run off with your money and you have no recourse. It's like, it's Bitcoin. You can't get your money back if someone steals it. Whereas with credit card, at least you could do a chargeback. If the casino stole your money, you could probably get it back. So the Bitcoin casinos seem to be a step backwards in player protection. And then there's the Ethereum casinos, which are a whole new breed, and we're one of those. And they allow you to not put your money into the casino. You can play the games using casino smart contracts, and the smart contracts will allow you to play the games from your own wallet, and you never have to make a deposit. So you never have to trust the casino, and they can never run off with your money. The problem there is that the Ethereum casinos don't have the technology to deliver an economic game. They charge a fortune in gas, and it's not their fault. That's just the way the network works, and they haven't built the technology to solve the problem. So every bet that you place on any other Ethereum casino, whether it's a dice game or a blackjack or a roulette or whatever, it costs you $1 to $4 in gas costs for every single game that you play. No one would pay that. It's insane. And they think that that's going to compete and disrupt the online gaming industry that doesn't charge you per game costs. It's completely idiocy to think that would actually be a competitive solution. Not to mention the speed of play, because games are supposed to be fun, and casino games they're supposed to be entertaining. You know, people don't play games just to win money. They play games to enjoy themselves and to be entertained. And many of the existing casino games play too slow and are not an enjoyable experience. So we set about to change all of that. We built technology to let the games play fast. Well, I mean, it's in our kind of motto: fast, fun, and fair. And the fun is part of the fast, in that you have to have games that are responsive to the player and that play at the player's speed, not play at the blockchain speed. The fair comes from being on the blockchain and doing a lot of good practices, you know, doing provably fair random numbers, and with smart contracts, provably fair game logic, which the other types of casinos don't have. And we get all of that with our new Fate Channel technology, which is the first live implementation, as far as we are aware, of state channels. And so we can do real-time random numbers, which you need obviously for casino games. And we do real-time micropayments, which we use for bets and wins, so that the player can play fast at the speed they want to play. And the Fate channels also do player interaction, so that they can do things inside the game, and the game responds quickly and not at blockchain speeds. So all of those things mean we have, for the first time, casino games that protect the player. The player is not at risk of losing their funds, other than playing the games and being lucky or unlucky. So they're to protect the player, and yet they're fun. And the fun is the key thing. And that's why they're fun and fair. And that helped us create the name FunFair.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. So how would a user check that in fact the game that they're playing is fair?
Well, I mean, some users will have more technical capability than others, but overall the community will have people that understand what's going on the blockchain. And so all of the transactions are provably fair on the blockchain, and the random numbers are committed in advance. So the random number seed is generated as a collaboration between the player's browser and the Fate channel service. And those two create a seed, put them together, lock it off in the blockchain in advance of the games. Then any number of games can be played, and those random numbers are all cycled off of the initial seed. And then at the end of the game session, it is proved what the initial committed seed was in advance of the games. So it is provably fair in multiple ways. Firstly, that the random numbers were chosen in advance. Secondly, that the sequence is in the correct order of random numbers, because another way that a casino could screw players is to have provably fair random numbers, but use them in a way that it suits them. So they could, use them out of order or something. And so we don't do that. We can prove the sequence was used correctly. And then the final way that you can prove it's fair is because the game logic is in the smart contract. And so you can see what the game does with those random numbers. You can see what decisions it made to be able to affect the outcome of the game and pay the player the winnings or keep the losings. And all of that is completely transparent on the blockchain. So we get the fairness, but we get the performance by doing our own Fate channels.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about Fate channels as well. So that's kind of the really interesting technological piece of all this. So just before we do that, let's go back into kind of a more quote unquote like vanilla implementation of a game on Ethereum using smart contracts. And you mentioned that there are high fees. So can you talk a little bit about sort of how without a state channel solution, how would such a game be implemented in smart contracts, and what would be the advantages and disadvantages of that?
I can talk through what other people are doing and show why we think that's not a good solution. So the dice games, and there's a few of them like Etherroll and V-Dice and some other ones, they make a few fundamental mistakes, I'm going to say. Firstly, they outsource their RNG to someone else, which is a ridiculous use of an oracle. And the good guys at Oracleize, and we love them, and we think they're doing a great job. I mean, oracles are not for generating random numbers. Oracles are for like data feeds. They're for like flight delays and weather and stock prices. I mean, they're for actual data. I mean, using that, abusing that to do random numbers is ridiculous. And it also adds to the cost of each game. and it also adds to the time. You know, most of those games need 3 or 4 blocks mined before they can give you the outcome. So you supposedly spin the dice or roll the dice, and then you wait, and then you wait and wait and wait. And if the blockchain is a bit busy, like it probably is at this very moment with someone's ICO, then you wait some more, and then eventually it tells you won. That's not fun, and it was expensive, and it wasn't interactive. So we think that's just, dumb. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
then
That's right. So that same mechanism you were talking about, where in order to be provably fair, the smart contract has to commit to a random number.
Yeah, it's a much better solution, because because firstly, random numbers don't need to come from data. Random numbers are not really data; they're generated, and so that whole system of using centralized Oracle services and centralized random number providers, which is, because Oracleize doesn't pick the random numbers, they outsource that. So you basically, those dice games are outsourcing the feed to someone else, and then those guys are outsourcing it to random.org or someone else that's going to produce a random number for them. It's like increasing the centralization involved in something that really doesn't need to do that. It can generate them itself, and it can prove that they're fair. In fact, that method doesn't even prove it's fair. All it does, all Oracleize can do is prove that the data came from the right place. It can't prove that it was fair, and it can't prove that someone else didn't know what it was before. That there's and it's expensive and it's slow. There's only disadvantages in doing that, and I really don't want to say anything bad about Oracleize, because they're great guys and they have a great solution, but their solution is being abused by some people in the wrong way. It doesn't need to be like that. So then there's some other people that are doing different methods of picking random numbers, which we've tried also before, and we've been going a while now, and we've done research, and we did use the block hash method previously, which is where you accept a bet from a player, and that goes into a transaction on the blockchain, and then we use the block hash from either that transaction or a later one, which couldn't have been known in advance, because the block hash is generated from transactions that you don't know about. And we were using that, but it suffers a big weakness, which is that miners can cheat. And then we came up with ways of solving that weakness, which is you can commit in advance an obfuscation, so that the miner can't know what the random number is at the time that they mine the block, and then you can reveal afterwards what your miner blinding was, and then it's provably fair. So we did have a way of solving that block hash problem that would have worked, but it was still slow, and it still cost a fortune in gas. So it didn't.
And mainly, sorry to interrupt. Mainly the reason that miners would be able to game that is that they would be able to censor a block that had a hash that would result in a roll that they didn't like, or something like that.
Oh yeah, and they could collude with the players and say, "Come play your games with us, and you won't lose. We'll make sure you win, and we'll split the proceeds with you." So it's a very big weakness, and we did solve it, as I mentioned, with a method that would have worked perfectly, but it didn't solve the other problems of performance, because you want speed. Games are all about interaction, and the games have to play at the speed the player wants them to play. You cannot slow them down to some external event, or they'll not enjoy the game. So games that are lockstep with the blockchain are bad. There's not what players want. So even though we had solved that problem, we also did solve, if you read our white paper, particularly the technical white paper, you'll see we actually solved the lockstep problem too with that method. We actually built a slot machine, which we didn't show anyone publicly, but we have got it, that uses the block hash method that runs asynchronously. And so it actually can run ahead of the blockchain or behind the blockchain, and it gives the player a fun experience. And the way that works is that the player inserts more coins than they needed. So they can insert enough coins in the slot machine for 10 games, and then they can play 10 games at any speed they want. And so we did solve that, and that is running, and we could have shown that to people, but it didn't really solve the other problems, the gas cost and so on. And so we basically think that the fake channel solution is the dream solution, because it's fast and fun and fair. and low gas costs. So it's just like it's the absolutely perfect solution for gaming. You know, there will be, it probably is the best solution for scaling in general on the blockchain, because you can do it now. You don't have to wait for sharding or whatever. You know, we can do this now. Keep the spam off the blockchain and just have the important transactions on the blockchain, and do all the internal transactions off it, store them on the cloud, so put them on IPFS, hashed onto the blockchain so that people can see every transaction. But all that unnecessary spam, I mean, let's talk about that for a minute, because that's a good point. All these other guys that are doing on-chain every single game, the amount of gas they're using for each transaction is somewhere of the order of 500,000 gas for each game. And that's usually 2 transactions, one of 250,000 and another one, or something like that. They're all about the same. If you think about how many transactions actually fit in a block, like a block is what, 4.5 million gas in each block. That means they could only have 9 concurrent players playing games, which is abysmal. I mean, that's the real world of online gaming has hundreds or thousands of players concurrently, and they could only have 9 using their technique, and they filled up the blockchain so that no one else can use it. So it's just spam. It's like that's a bad use of the blockchain. So we think that the fake channel solution is the right way to go, and we also think that everyone else will copy us. We think that this way is the right way.
So just for anyone who might be watching and not be completely aware of fake channels, can you just you know, not in too much detail, but can we describe like what a state channel does, and why it is also like pretty secure?
Yeah, so so a state channel is like a cache. It's a layer 2 transaction network that sits on top of the blockchain network. And you know, it was first invented in Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, which is still not out to this day because of whatever governance problems they have. But it was reinvented in Ethereum, and one day Raiden will come out, and that will be really cool. But it basically lets you cache transactions off the chain. And so both parties, the client, which is the player, and the fake channel service, which is the server, they create a back channel that they can communicate with that is outside of the blockchain. So once you sit down and you want to play a game, that channel is opened. And then whenever the player wants to make bets, or whenever the house, in our case, wants to pay wins, those transactions are created fully formed as if they were going to be on the blockchain, but they don't get sent to the blockchain, they get cached. And they're signed by both parties, so they are ready to be transmitted onto the chain, but they're held back off chain, and knowledge that they're held back is retained so that the games can play on. And so an online game like this is the perfect use case, because transactions are going back and forth. There are bets and wins and bets and wins. And so all of those things can happen, and this cache just builds up of transactions that haven't been broadcast yet. And then when either side wants to quit or lose its connection or whatever, it gets pushed. Actually, it gets coalesced into a summary of what it needs to be, and then it gets pushed to the chain. And either side can do that, or actually the channel can be left open and you can come back and play it another day and keep going. So, and the great thing for gas is that the gas cost is only at the beginning of the session when you start the game, and then you can play as many games as you want until you close the session, which is basically you get up and go have your dinner or something. Then you can close the session, and that's when your bank balance, your own wallet is updated and the casino's wallet is updated. But in between, while you're in the middle of the game, is all being cached off chain.
Right. So whereas in the quote unquote naive implementation, right, you constantly have to have on-chain transactions. You're constantly paying gas every time you roll a dice, every time you you know, generate a random number, every time you do a payout, every time you do a bet. That's a single Ethereum transaction.
Every single thing. I mean, most of those guys are doing 2 transactions for every game that you play, like one to start it and one to get the result. Some of them are even doing 3 because they're also sending something to Oracleize and then waiting for something about. I mean, it's very expensive on gas. The worst one I've seen, unfortunately, is a friend of ours. There's a blackjack game who I won't name, but every single thing happens on chain, even when you hit to have a card or stand to like. You know, basically every click of the player is also on chain, which also incurs gas cost. And that's just like,
Yeah.
That's
So
just so
you probably
expensive.
end up paying.
You pay $4 for a hand of blackjack, and that's not even including your bet or your house edge or anything. I mean, it's just that
Right.
an uneconomic solution. And it's a, I mean, if you view it as a science experiment and a proof that you can do games on the blockchain, then it's brilliant, because, you know, someone had to come first and prove that this was possible. And, you know, our friend who did this stuff did that, you know, and proved that you could do games fair, protecting the player on the blockchain. However, it wasn't fun, and it wasn't in, you know, I mean, it just wasn't real time, and it was very expensive to play. So it wasn't an economic solution, and we need to do an economic solution, because we need something that can disrupt the entire online gaming business, not just be a cool proof of concept that it actually works, which is what the others seem to be.
Awesome. So let's move into that part of it. Like, what do you see as the, like, what are the gambling markets look like today, and what kind of opportunity is this?
So the main, I mean, we see the opportunities like there's so many benefits in doing it this way, that we think that any one of those benefits could be the killer benefit. But let's start with cost. So all of the existing online gaming solutions, I mean the big ones that use credit cards today, which is like a $40 billion market, they have massive server infrastructure in remote secret hideaways, you know, in Caribbean islands and, you know, offshore islands, where they have hundreds, if not thousands, of servers hosting the games. And they have to do that because they can't put them in the country where the games are allowed, because in general, remote gaming, which is what this is called, is a highly regulated thing, and they have to put the servers somewhere else, usually somewhere where they've got a regulation that lets them do it. In our case, we have none of those servers. We're using the blockchain and the miners to be our game servers. The games are running in smart contracts, so we don't need any server infrastructure at all. It's literally, the network is our infrastructure, and it already exists. So there's a massive cost saving for gaming operators, and what that would be, they can either end up with massive margins that they can then spend on marketing to get their players, or they can more likely offer players a better deal, like higher wins. So the players will win more playing those games because the operators got lower costs. So so we think, from a pure economic point of view, the casino operators that use this technology will have more competitive games, just from a cost point of view. And then there's what we believe is our most important reason for doing it, is the fairness. The fact that the player is better protected than they've ever been before, that they can't lose money because the casino is going to run off with their cash. They can't lose money because the casino is going to give them worse odds than they thought they were going to get, because everything is transparent. The blockchain has all the bets and all the wins. You'll know what the payout is of the slot machine or the roulette table, because you can see every transaction. And there's even going to be an audit button that, you know, anyone can press, that will look at like the past 1,000 or 10,000 games and say, those games were fair, here's the payouts. And no one's ever had that before. No one's had that level of transparency. Even a regulator that does have audit rights on the legitimate casinos doesn't continually audit the games. They sample it every now and then, and, you know, see a set of games. So even they don't see everything, and could have the wool pulled over their eyes, because the casino operator could selectively show them something that they wanted to show them, and not show them something that they didn't want to show them. So we think this is the fairest games ever, and everyone benefits from that. And so the player benefits because they don't need to trust it, they can see it's fair. The regulator benefits, if there is a regulator, because the regulator has, for the first time, full transparency in real time of every game that's being played. Even the affiliates, who are the people that drive traffic to the casinos, they benefit, because affiliates always think they're being screwed. And they always think, you know, affiliates are responsible for marketing to the players and sending player traffic to the casinos. And they get paid on a revenue share basis every month, and they always think their players should have generated more revenue than they did, and they always think they're being screwed. And like this, firstly, they don't have to wait every month. They'll get real-time payouts. You know, as their players that they've sent are actually playing, they'll be receiving their piece of the action in real time. I mean, it couldn't be fairer than that. And also they know they're not being screwed. So no one in the chain, the player, the operators, the affiliates, or us, the developer of the technology, no one gets screwed in this system. It's just a pure system. So we just think the benefits of it are just so great that we think this can disrupt the entire online gaming industry.
And so how do you see this happening? Is it that sort of large casinos today are likely to start adopting this kind of technology once they find out about it? Or do you think the disruption is going to come from, you know, some startups such as yourself coming into the market and really putting a dent in their business?
So we've designed this company and technology to be compatible with the way that they market their games. So we are a pure developer of the platform, the technology, and the games. We're not trying to be a casino operator. In fact, we definitely are not an operator. So we're not going to be competing with them. We're going to be using them. And there's thousands, tens of thousands of white label casino operators out there. In fact, almost every online casino that you see, almost every single one, did not create their software. They licensed it from someone else. So, and in all cases, it's done on a revenue share basis. So we think that we can work with the entire channel of how they already market their casino games. So we'll use the existing affiliate network and the existing white label casino network, and we will get those guys, you know, to adopt our games and use our platform. And for them, as I said, there's a win in terms of lower costs, so they can have better margins, and there's a win in terms of fairness for players. We also are building really cool games that will hopefully be competitive just as a game. You know, they're in 3D, they look cool, they're fun. You know, we've come from the computer games world. If we don't know how to make good games, then I don't know who does. So, you know, we're gonna compete on every level. But yes, so our plan is that existing casino operators around the world will use our technology in our games.
Excellent. And you keep saying we. How many people are working with you on this today?
So the team is about 20 people right now, of which about half of those are developers. We are expanding, and obviously after the token round, we're doing 2 token rounds, by the way. There's one that is tomorrow, which is like a pre-sale round that for the people that want to be in early. And then there's the main round, which is in a few months' time. So we're going to use those funds to rapidly expand and build out the development team and have more games in development, finish up the technology. The technology works today, and it's already playable on the website, funfair.io. But we've got a lot bigger plans for the technology, and we can do a lot more with it, and very ambitious plans. So we want to just keep pushing ahead. And in fact, we're not going to launch it in its current form because there's a major piece of technology. The Fate Channel version 4, we believe, is the most important one. And so we're just going to go on and release it to the public after that. End of the year is probably our target for that.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the tokens, and tell us a little bit about what is the function of the token on the platform, and what does the supply of the token look like with relation to your sales?
So the Fun tokens we are creating tomorrow, literally on the phase 1 of the token sale. All the tokens get created, and then there are no more. We only destroy from then on, and they're used very well inside the game. So the platform has multiple pieces to it, and the token is used in every piece to do commerce. So let's start with the game. So the game's developer, which in the first games is us, but we don't envisage that we'll be the only game supplier. We see a lot of other game developers being attracted to this platform. So game developers are paid in Fun tokens for the use of their games. Casino operators and affiliates are all paid in Fun tokens for their revenue share. Players play the games using Fun tokens, and so they're effectively the casino chip that's used inside the game. Also internally inside the game, the Fate Channel service and the random numbers are paid internally with tiny amounts of Fun tokens. So basically, every transaction around this ecosystem is done using the Fun token system. And we had to do that for multiple reasons, including legal ones. But it's a full ecosystem, and it needed its own token. And and it's very much what the lawyers like to call an app token, and not a security as the people who are abusing tokens are doing.
Okay, great. So basically what you're saying is that in the future, people who will want to play the games will need to acquire the Fund token in order to play. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you can either acquire the Fund token in the Fund creation event, which is like starts tomorrow, and then the phase 2 in a few months, or you will buy them from other people, which will be in in trading. People can sell the tokens to each other either directly or through a medium of exchange like exchanges or smart contracts or whatever. And exchanges are a very exciting world too, because they're changing now. They're becoming more and more automated, and they're becoming smart contract. I mean, Shapeshift pioneered this, but I think everyone's going to be doing it, where especially with Ethereum tokens, the ERC20 standard means that these tokens are very easy to build smart contracts to interchange them and to allow people to like trade them with each other very easily, instantaneously. So I think you'll see a lot of that, and these automated exchanges will spring up all over the place. So anyway, we don't think there's going to be any trouble with people acquiring Fund tokens without us having to do anything, because we actually don't want to sell them ourselves. We want to be the pure developer of the platform and some games. We don't want to be an exchange as well, but there's plenty of good exchanges out there that do that without us needing to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Great. So one kind of thing to always think about in building open source systems, which use a utility token or app token, as you say, is that like what happens when someone takes your open source code, forks it, and then removes its dependency from your token and replaces it with their own,
right,
or replaces it with Ether? Does that erode, in your view, kind of the utility of the token?
Well, it's something we have to be very aware of, and we have time to figure out our solutions for that. We do need solutions. We don't just want to put it out there and let someone else rip it off. So we will build some kind of authentication in there to try and protect our IP. Some of it is going to be open source, because some of it is required to be open source for the provably fair aspect, but some of it isn't open source. Some of it is the games, which are a creative endeavor, and they don't need to be open sourced. And so we're going to have, those are protected by copyright, and the games themselves and the look and feel and the magic of the game is very much IP that you protect. And any existing IP protection would already cover that. So people can't rip off the games. They might be able to rip off the smart contracts, but the smart contracts are only the inner workings. They're not actually the top level experience that the player plays. So we think that there's some protection there already, but we'd like to put more in. Mm-hmm. There's also the network effect, because we're very much believers in the network, and we're believers that if we build out a very good platform, which we're doing, that can run in real time, that has low gas costs and all these things, we think that we will build a network. There will be other game developers that will want to use it, and that there'll be game operators and affiliates and so on. We think that everyone that contributes to this network is effectively strengthening the network and making it harder for someone else to rip off the technologies and make their own network. I mean, they could do that, but they'll be the tiny network, and we'll have the network effect, which is what we believe in.
Excellent. And so in terms of how you're allocating across these sales, like what percentage of the tokens are going to sort of your early supporters in the pre-sale, and then how much of it is being sold to the public in the second round?
We had a problem because we stayed in stealth mode quite long. So we started this project. The earliest experiments we did were like a year ago. And so no one knew about us for a long time, and we liked it, staying in stealth mode for a long time, because we could just head down, get the technology built, get the games built, do a good job without anyone interfering. But then we came out a week ago, and then so the website literally only launched a week ago, if that. At the time we had an idea that we could do a big raise. All of a sudden, no one knew about us, and then suddenly everyone's going to know about us. And that was an incorrect assumption for us. So instead, we decided we need time to explain what we're doing and show how, you know, our solution is a good one, and that our games are good, and that the technology and platform's good. So we need time to, you know, bring up awareness in the community of what we're doing. And so we put off the round a few months. Not only that, but you know, personally, I mean, I come from the, you know, the regular investment world, and I'm an angel investor myself in many other companies. It's very hard to raise all the money you will ever need upfront in one go. It's like, it actually is just, I don't know how anyone could possibly do that. Now, when people are throwing money at you, maybe you just raise too much and then you're fine anyway. But it really doesn't make sense to do one big bang moment where you raise everything you're ever going to use. So, and the conventional investment world doesn't do that. The conventional investment world does, you know, baby steps, you know, seed rounds, angel rounds, whatever, Series A, Series B. They do valuation step ups, they do milestones that you've delivered, and management teams that you've hired, and all these things. And that makes a lot of sense. You know, there's a maturity of the company at the same time as the investment is going in. So we thought this actually makes more sense to do this in 2 rounds, and we do a pre-sale round now, and keep the same date and the same, try and keep the contract terms as close as possible to what they were going to be before, which is what we're doing. And then we do a big round later when everyone knows what we're doing. So the pre-sale round is limited, but actually all the tokens get created that we will ever need at that time, but only a small proportion of them are sold. The rest are locked in a trust till phase 2. And phase 2, whatever happens in that sale, which we intend to be a Dutch auction and be a market priced sale, whatever doesn't get sold in phase 2 returns to the phase 1 holders as an anti-dilution. So we think for the phase 1, investors, we think it's a good deal, because, you know, if it goes well in phase 2, the phase 1 holders will benefit.
Cool, but do you know, or are you willing to say like what approximately the size that's going to?
It can only be approximate because the tokens are created as they're bought. So when they're bought, 1 is allocated and 3 are created in the trust, ready for phase 2. And then after phase 2 happens, those get returned to the phase 1 owners if they're not used. So we actually don't know exactly how many are going to be sold, but about 10 billion. And we're doing the best price for the maximum bonus is 150 fund tokens per US dollar. Everything's priced in US dollars in this token contract. The exchange rate will get set tomorrow for every token. And we take, I know Vitalik doesn't like this idea, but we take lots of currencies. So we take Ether and Bitcoin and 20 different ERC20 tokens, including all of our competitors' game tokens, especially all of our competitors' game tokens.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think it was an evil plan of our advisor and token partner, New Alchemy. Thought you should own your competitors' tokens. He thought that's a really good idea. Anyway, so we because we're raising in multiple different currencies, we can't predict exactly how much we're going to raise. But based on initial demand, we're going to blow away. You know, we're going to blow out the initial amount that we were going to sell. So it's going to be, you know, I mean, it's quite ironic that, you know, when we were going to do a big raise and then we didn't think we had enough awareness to do that, so we put it off. So we made it a small raise, and now everyone wants in. Like now, you know, the smaller you try and make it, the more people want in. It's kind of it has the opposite effect of what you wanted.
Nice. So I always like to ask companies that come on here how their fundraising kind of strategy has played out up until this point, where they're about to go and do a token sale offering, because everyone approaches that kind of cash flow gap in different ways. And so you mentioned that you guys have been already operating for almost a year.
Yeah.
How is the fun? You know, how is that
Okay,
finance?
I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've made money in past companies. I've had my own companies that have gone public on the real stock exchange, not this tokeny thing going on. I had some very big IPOs of my own in the last tech boom of 2000. So I had a computer games company and I had a microprocessor company. And the microprocessor that we invented back then, called the ARC, is actually inside most Intel systems, and is inside the memory cards of most of your camera, and it's inside most set-top boxes, or many set-top boxes. So we basically built a very cool microprocessor way back, and that was a multi-billion, more than £1 billion IPO, and I was the biggest shareholder. So I've had my exits before, and so I have been helping finance the business for the last year, and I would keep going, but it just the opportunity to actually come out and tell people what we're doing and involve the community is actually critical for us, because we want people to have tokens so they can play. So it's kind of the people that are going to buy the tokens might be doing it for other reasons, but they're also our customers. So we want a widespread distribution. We're not going to get that in phase one. We know that phase one is such a small round that people will try to get in, and some people will get in, but it's not going to be widespread. Phase two is our widespread distribution, and we'll do whatever we can to make that one be wider. We'll learn from everyone else's learnings, and everyone tries something different to make it widespread. And whether it's civic or status or BAT or whatever, that we can learn from what others have done and try and improve that, because we do want it to be widespread. But we're not going to get that in phase one. We know that, because the round's too small to achieve that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So interesting. So as a as a person that's bootstrapped this project for about a year, do you find that being in development mode in the blockchain space was kind of like more costly than it would have otherwise been in a more traditional tech or gambling gaming business? And also one more thing, and have you found that the costs to get to a token sale, have they been like significant?
Yeah, those are good questions. So you might have to remind me them one by one so that I can hit them in correctly.
So the first question is, did you find that working in a nascent technology space was sort of like more costly to finance the team than you would otherwise expect from a more traditional space?
Okay, so my answer there is probably different than you've heard. Firstly, we did the unusual step, and I know this sounds completely alien, but we built the product and the technology first, and that before we told anyone about it. No one else seems to do that, or many people don't. They just write a white paper and have a dream and announce it to the world and raise some money just off their dream without actually having built anything. We did the opposite. We built everything, not finished, but we built the platform, we built the technology, we had to do a lot of inventing, we built a bunch of games. So by the time we actually showed people, in fact, by the time we even started the white paper, we had everything running, which is like completely alien. No one does that. So it meant that we stayed in stealth mode, and we didn't have the ridiculous costs of the rest of the ICO token world, because we weren't an ICO token while we were building it. We were a pure developer building some cool technology and some games. So we didn't. And then the other problem that developers in this space have, they have to hire Solidity developers, and Solidity developers are hard to find and might be expensive. Well, we didn't hire any Solidity developers. We just learned it. That's, I always maintain, because I am a programmer myself, that a good programmer can learn any language and can program anything. And it's about the person and their skill that is important, not what specific language it is. So no one in our team had ever heard of Ethereum before they started working on our games. None. They were not blockchain people. They're just good developers. And then you put the puzzle in front of them. Here's the hurdles. This is a blockchain. This is what you need to do. And then they learn it. And these are smart people who are very competent. And there's no magic here. This is this is just technology. You just have to learn it and learn to use it. And so all of our developers had never seen Ethereum. Most of them had never even seen Bitcoin either before they touched any code. And now they're writing blockchain code and Solidity code and interacting with the blockchain and everything else. So I think that's a much more scalable way to do it than to try and hire developers that have already the prerequisite skills that you need to just teach them the skills or let them learn the skills themselves. And then you've got a much, larger place to recruit from.
Very interesting. And I totally see where you're coming from. Like when we think about hiring maybe an analyst or something, it's really hard to, source someone with that combination of expertise. It's basically like technology, but then also finance in the context of blockchain. And it's just like you realize people just have to learn this stuff, and the market has to expand. And then the second question was for you, Jez, whether you find that the reason I'm asking is like my impression as someone who watches these processes like happen all the time is my impression is that actually the cost to ICO it might be going up just because you have so many providers.
So I didn't get to answer that part of your question. No, the cost to ICO is definitely going up because we're in touch with people that ICO'd a few months ago and we try to learn from them. And actually some of the lessons that they learned don't apply now. Everyone in the food chain is charging a lot more now because this ICO thing is just booming. And so every advert that you place on, every banner you place, every article you have written, every review that someone has independently written, you've paid for. I mean, this thing is, everyone is out with their hands, hand out, like, pay me to do this and pay me to do that. So yes, it's become expensive to ICO. And that's only in the last few months. It wasn't expensive. Now it is.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And like theoretically, it should be that the costs are going down, right? Because you have more service providers in the space. They should be competing with each other. But I guess it's just that like because the raises are going up so fast.
Yeah, and people are trying to do it in record time as well. And so all of these are happening. They'll charge you danger money for doing something fast. They'll charge you premiums because they know you're going to raise a lot of money. Everyone is charging. They're trying to get you get asked for a piece of your raise for doing an article or something. It's like, no, we'll pay you for your time. We'll pay you your really good raise, but we're not going to pay you a piece of the raise for doing that. So that everyone has their hand out, and this is the nature of the business that it is right now. And every unbiased article that you have read wasn't unbiased. It's not. It's not. There's no one independent in this space that I can see.
Excellent. Well, Jez, thank you so much for joining us and talking through these issues. It's really cool. I think state channels are awesome, and I would love to see more projects using them in production.
We couldn't believe we're the first people to have live state channels. I mean, we call them fake channels, but they do more than the usual ones. But I couldn't believe we're the first people because people have been talking about this for a long time. But we actually have them running on our website today. You can play a fake channel game.
Cool. So once again, thank you for joining. Is there anything that you would like to leave us with in terms of kind of the product or things that people should know ahead of
the so we're working. I mentioned that we're actually in deep R&D on something very cool. So the fake channels that we built that run today are we call them V2, but we're actually the V4 ones are the ones that are very exciting to us. We're working on something really groundbreaking that is, fingers crossed, going to change the world. So we'll reveal more soon. FunFair.io is the website. Go learn what we're doing and read our white papers. There's 2 of them, commercial one and a technical one, and play the games and try the fake channel slot machine for yourself to see that it really works. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Jez. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Can't wait to hear your announcement and follow the progress there. Very cool. Thank you for inviting me. Okay. Take care. Take care. Bye.